catches fire, the fire is the event. And there's, of course, a risk associated with that. There is a risk that the hazard will turn into an event. It might be a high risk, it might be a low risk. In summer, in some countries, in hot weather, in dry conditions, the risk of the forest catching fire and turning into a forest fire is obviously quite high. But also we need to think about the likelihood of damage, and that's important because many disaster events, many of the things that people talk about as disasters don't actually cause damage. And Australia is a really good example of that scenario, because in Australia we can have disaster events like forest fires that can burn for days and weeks without actually impacting on infrastructure or communities. So there is no damage. Therefore, there is no disaster. If, however, that event impacts on a community or on essential infrastructure, it causes what we refer to as changes in function. So changes in function means the water supply is damaged, the health system is damaged, we're unable to get food supply or essential medicines. The function of our community has changed in some way. And that causes needs, and if those needs exceed the capacity of that community, then we believe that we have a disaster. And as all of you will know, disasters are defined as those events, broadly speaking, those events that require outside assistance because the community's ability to respond is overwhelmed. So that would be the World Association for Disaster and Emergency Medicine's view about how disasters actually roll out and work. So that's a disaster. What do we know today? Well, we know that disasters are increasingly events that are systemic. They don't just happen locally. The incident happens locally, the event happens locally, but the effects are regional or national or global in impacts. And we see that with COVID-19, we saw that with the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, we saw that with SARS, we saw that with a few volcanic eruptions that have disrupted international travel and so on. They have these bigger effects that we need to think about because health is affected as well. So in thinking about what those effects are and what those interconnections are, there are a few lenses that you can use. The first of those is to think about what essential societal systems are. And we talk about these systems as being the things we depend on for our community to work, for it to be safe and healthy. And we clearly need public health and medical care, which is where we live, but we also need communications, we need a functioning government, we need access to food and nutrition, we need infrastructure like water supply, we need shelter and logistics. All of those things around the outside of this diagram are essential for the community to work. And when we go into a disaster zone, what we typically do in our rapid assessment of a disaster is to measure the status of each of these pieces. We will look at the health system and see how damaged it is. We'll look at the water supply and see whether we need to supply more water or whether we can fix the system that's been damaged, and so on and so on. So that is a typical disaster response. But the reason this slide is important is that in modern emergencies, often, the local community doesn't supply these things. It receives these services from somewhere else, and if there is damage somewhere else, the local community can also be affected. I am moving quite quickly through those ideas, but I'll take some questions at the end, and you might want to send me questions at some other time. So what else do we have to think about? Well, today, disasters are also often surprising. People talk about black swans and Thanksgiving turkeys. I talk about those things because actually today we often can't predict that a disaster is going to happen. A black swan is a disaster event that occurs that was unexpected and unplanned for. So a sudden terrorist attack, arguably, could be a black swan. The global impact of COVID-19 could be a black swan. It may be that your local plans never really considered an event of this scope and scale and impact. So we would think about that as a black swan. These are events that don't appear in our disaster plan. So what do we do about that? Well, typically around the world, people now talk about trying to build more resilient systems. We do that because we want a system that has the capacity and capability to respond effectively, regardless of what the event actually is. So if it's a wildfire, if it's COVID-19, if it's an earthquake, we have a system that is strong enough to respond and has what it needs. So we have a functioning emergency department, we have a functioning pharmacy, we have generator power for our hospital, we have a communication system, we can call up staff at short notice. All of those things are about a more robust and capable system, and it doesn't actually matter so much what the emergency is, as long as the system is strong. And that's become a very real focus of emergency planning in these days. So in health systems and in other places, in thinking about how we build those things, we focus on this list. We think about how we can understand what is vulnerable, what is more likely to break, what is valuable, what are the things that we really need to continue to work, that people think are most important, who's responsible for those things, what network and partnerships do we have that supply those things, how connected are we to people that might come and help us, what awareness do staff have about how to run in an emergency, and what skills do our people need in order to have that capacity and capability to work in a disaster. And then, when we think about a resilient system that has been built to sustain itself regardless of the event, we can start to cope with these sorts of events that are completely unexpected. The so-called here be dragons. This phrase is used in emergency management to refer to the fact that we know what some of the risks are. We know that we don't know about some of the risks. We don't know, for example, what the next novel emerging infectious disease will be, like COVID-19. We don't know which animal or environmental cause might lead to a jump of an infectious disease into the human population. But we know that that can happen. And thirdly, in the here be dragons context, people talk about the unknown unknowns. So the known unknowns, there are some things I know I don't know. The unknown unknowns are those things that I just haven't thought about. Those events, once again, we can't prepare for. We can only do our best to build the strength of our system so that when something unexpected, surprising, unknown actually happens, we have some capacity to deal with it. And so my final slide is a list of the things that you might think about in preparing your health system to cope with whatever might happen. The unthinkable, if you like, how to manage the things that you haven't even thought about that can impact on your health system. And this is the list that, part of the list that people use. First is to identify and protect what really matters. Often we try and protect everything, but think about the things that must function in your organisation. And you can do that by looking at the dependencies across the system. You can't run theatres if you don't have beds to send patients to. You can't run theatres if you don't have pharmacy equipped with the kinds of medications and support you need to run the pharmacy, and so on, those kinds of questions. Focus on your management culture. The thing that often breaks management in healthcare is when it is hierarchical, when you need to get permission from the very top to take an emergency action, because then you can't do anything. So in emergencies, think about how your management culture works. Improve your situational awareness so that you notice smaller signals and your staff will tell you about them sooner. Prepare for the things you're not able to predict. That's about strengthening the system. I've talked about that. Protect your capacity and capability. Don't just strengthen your system, but protect and nurture and build, have caches, have supply of the things you really need. Encourage trusted accountability and what we call constructive disobedience. And that's a very uncomfortable thing, because constructive disobedience is allowing staff to make decisions outside of policy if they see an emergency happening and somebody has to take action right now. So it is about allowing staff to be trusted to take a decision that isn't in the policy. That's quite hard to do, obviously, but we've seen so many big disasters occur just because an individual, middle management or other staff member couldn't take a decision because they didn't have permission. Don't seek certainty in your plans. Don't over-plan your disaster plans, because as soon as the event occurs, your plan in effect is redundant and you need to start responding to what is actually happening. Focus on capability. Importantly, practice moving from normal daily business, from what I call slow time, to quick time. Actually practice how you can rapidly upscale the way in which your department is working. Promote self-organising autonomous teams as much as you can. And finally, think about worst-case scenarios. Spend some time sitting in a room thinking about what could happen, thinking about what the worst result could possibly be. And if you plan for that kind of result, then you'll be fine, regardless almost of what else happens. So think about worst-case scenarios and use those in your disaster planning. So overall, that's a bit of a talk about how we understand disaster today. And in summary, I would just say the world is changing. No disaster is simply a natural disaster anymore. Disasters impact on systems, not just on the local environment. And we need to think about building capacity and capability so that we can respond to the next disaster, regardless of what it is, and because we probably don't know what it's going to be. So thank you very much. I'll just stop sharing and invite you to ask any questions if there's any time left to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Paul, for explanation and sharing for some knowledge and some tricks. Okay, before coming to the second speaker, I would like to highlight something related to the Professor Paul explained just now. Jadi mungkin ada beberapa yang kita highlight pada partisipan. Jadi topik ini menanggapi konsekuensi bencana yang berdatangan dan tidak terduga. Ada beberapa hal yang mungkin perlu kita lihat di sini supaya nanti terstimulus untuk bertanya kepada partisipan. Jadi hal-hal yang kita mesti perhatikan di sini adalah dampak bencana itu sangat besar dan dampaknya kemudian juga berjangka panjang dan sangat signifikan. Namun perencanaan kesiapsiagaan sangat dibutuhkan di sini. Dan banyak hal tadi terkait dengan dampaknya ada penyakit infeksi, cuaca yang ekstrim, kemudian serangan teroris, masalah di masyarakat, kerusakan bangunan. Jadi banyak sekali dampaknya sehingga kita perlu memanage kejadian-kejadian yang tidak terpikirkan atau tidak terduga. Nah, di sini fokusnya adalah kesiapsiagaan dan perencanaan dari awal dari kita semua. Karena interaksi kompleks di sini sangat dibutuhkan, kita tidak bisa berencana atau melaksanakannya sendiri, namun perlu koordinasi dan kontrol terhadap apa yang akan kita rencanakan. Oke, mungkin itu sedikit yang saya akan highlight untuk hal-hal yang disampaikan oleh Mr. Paul tadi. Okay, Professor Paul, thank you very much for sharing us. And then we are coming for the second speaker. We would like to invite Assistant Professor Dr. Pratuma Ritpo. But before, I would like to read the CV of her. So we are really proud that Assistant Professor Dr. Pratuma have some achievement also, like she is also graduate from the Bachelor of Nursing Science from Naresuan University, Thailand, and then graduate Master of Nursing Science in the Faculty of Nursing Chiang Mai University, Thailand, and PhD on the Chiang Mai University, Thailand also, and so many short course and training and also conference also achieved by Dr. Pratuma, and also experience. So she is a staff nurse in patient department in Romchat Hospital, Nakhon Sawan, Thailand. And then at present, she is a lecturer sub-department of adult nursing and sub-department of maternal and newborn nursing, Department of Nursing, Faculty of Nursing, Naresuan University, Phitsanulok, Thailand. And then the area interest is HIV, women health nursing, maternal and fetal health, sexually transmitted disease, vulnerable population, midwifery nursing. And also she had so many books here. Maybe I can mention it one by one, but I just found it. It is 27 books by Dr. Ritpo. Okay. And then so many publication also. Presentation, poster, guest speaker also, editorial report, journal reviewer also, and so many things that we can mention it one by one. So to simplify, we would like to invite Dr. Pratuma Ritpo. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, okay. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Sure, it's really clearly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Time is yours.
Yes, good morning, the guest speaker, the committee, and the participants. I also appreciate to be a speaker of this seminar and everything to visit your country again. I really impressed Indonesia, especially Bromo and Borobudur Temple. Today, this is my topic. You know that the most women and girls need center to respond effort protection. This effort is an event that results in stress, harm, damage, and death. Serious difficult. It is a sudden event such as accident or natural catastrophe that causes damage or loss life. You can see this picture that you face many disasters. About the natural disaster that my responsibility today is that may cause loss of life, injury, and other health impact, property damage. In your country, I think that you are facing several disasters like Thailand, such as tsunami, flooding, typhoon. Or now we facing pandemic. Country around the world, and in Indonesia, I think your country is facing volcanic eruption also, and I watched the news about the Mount Sumeru volcanic eruption in January. Yeah, this is my experience. Yeah. I have experience to study in Houston, Texas. And I traveled to the USA several times. I have learned how to survive when I face with disaster, especially hurricane and flash flood. I studied in this city after Hurricane Katrina attacked us, and I got the certificate of hurricane preparedness. I have learned how to survive when hurricane. In Texas, it has Hurricane Center to provide information, facility, and so on. This center has several plans to protect people lives as emergency supply, warning sign, communication, and fast list in our area, evacuation routes, weather alert, and some special suggestions such as keeping important documents in a waterproof container. You can apply this protocol, this suggestion to your country, and you should create protocol for each disaster. This is you can see the picture in Texas, Houston. This is the Katrina destroyed the city, and you can see the evacuee. This is I learned that this is stadium that I should move on when hurricane contact this city. The Reliance Center operates for rescue in preparation of Hurricane Ike and Katrina. This Astrodome opened to up to 11,000 more evacuees and several volunteers to help up this phase. The center operates the bus to pick up the refugees, and the city provide the cloth, the blanket, and the supply for the evacuees. When you're facing with some disaster situation, you might consider evacuate or stay. You cannot stay in some situations such as landslide, flooding, volcanic eruption. On the other hand, you might consider stay or evacuate. I also show the largest evacuee in the USA. This picture estimates there's more than 1.5 or 3 million evacuees. They try to move to another city. They worry about Katrina hurricane. This type of evacuee put a state on the roadway infrastructure that was not built to handle for the evacuation volume. They are started on the roads around 36 hours time to freelance. Now we have a good technology to get your people information to predict hurricane, typhoon, or earthquake, how to stay or evacuate. And it is important to know when not to evacuate. Therefore, you should consider about research and forecasting of this disaster in your country. About the effect of disaster on pregnant women, newborn, and infants. Pregnant women's immune system make them more vulnerable to disease, and their nutrition needs are better. Therefore, the mother body try to prepare the children to become more alert and more reactive, so they will be able to deal with the environment more appropriately. Pregnant women, newborn, and infants will be harmed with natural disaster when occur. The lack of resources, such as clean water, lack of access to care and medication, you should think about. And every disaster, they must facing this psychological stress that I saw the schedule that some professor will speak. We'll talk about this condition, and you should think more about the condition of pregnant women, about the morbidity and comorbidity disorder, PIS, GDM, anemia, authors. If you try to protect them, you should try to prepare yourself and your system to support them well. And you should think about the history of pregnancy, previous visa, PPS, and so on. If they must move to another brand, you should try to conduct the operation room for them also. According to the former study, this is systematic review. In 2010, they found that disaster-related serious complications among pregnant women. You can study more. Almost all students adapt the topic indicates that women are more prone and post-disaster psychopathology than men. And pregnant postpartum women may be especially vulnerable to the mental health consequence of disaster. Those complications of disaster include stillbirth, IUGR, and maybe some depression, and maybe low birth weight, depression. If this actor has different or maybe a similar of outcome. I think relief workers such as nurse clinicians should concentrate on the most exposed women, particularly with respect to mental health. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists in 2010 presented that preparing this actor in women or pregnant women the recommendation related the former information. When women have fever resource, physical and emotional, they get harder. Maybe sometimes the impact of evacuation, they stay in the rooftop or some disaster, and maybe they're sitting in the shelter going to 2 or 3 days without any food or maybe more profound. And you should think about the spontaneous abortion when they are evacuated. Many research in kids show that spread of disaster can cause long-lasting damage, that they are mild. There is good reason for mother in state food embellishment to produce higher stage child. Children born from those mothers who have different cognitive, neurobehavioral or psychological impact. They are more reactive and more anxious, more fearful, and more likely to be aggressive. This is empirical, so that the negative effect in our developing country have maybe increasingly. This is can be stressful among pregnant or caring for an infant. Making plan ahead of time and knowing what to do when a disaster occurs can help and keep them safe during emergency. The needs of vulnerability of women, infants, and children during disaster need the support. That SCOG summarized that they need a local healthcare facility such as ANC, LR, ORPP, and family planning. And you should think more about the establishing and maintaining lactation before, during, and after disaster. Decreasing the number of unintended pregnancy when they stay at the camp together, maybe they have a problem of this case. And we should think about reducing sexual assault and should be provide a safe and secure environment in evacuation shelter. And emergency contraceptive, sexual assault, forensic examination, or sexual assault nurse examination. Some disaster situation you need field hospital, and you must create and conduct field hospital suitable for pregnant women or postpartum women, because some disasters long time. And you should think that how you continue taking their nursing interventions such as vitamin that you should get to them, protect them from infection and danger. This is maybe have several few hospitals that you can apply. It is not easy to write a plan for police, education your people and healthcare staff, those who manage the serious situation. The question is, are we willing to change the outcome before it starts? About the emergency preparedness for women and infants, I summarize that you choose guide special disaster for this group, special and different different protocol, and encourage patients to develop evacuation plan in the event of disaster. And you must inform pregnant patients on the sign of preterm labor and other obstetric emergency. Work with public health officials to identify facilities that can provide prenatal and obstetric service in disaster. You must encourage patients to develop emergency kit because some women stay at around the volcano. You must teach them about this, and you must promote lactation because we have about limited of supplier clean water or something like that. Lactation is the good way to support newborn, and encourage local and state government to provide facilities that are safe and secure for women and children. And you must inform and be aware of mental distress and promote prompt attention mental health needs. And you must integrate and maintain the ESTER responsive service. This is the example of emergency birth kit for patients. Maybe you can apply and you prepare in the disaster area. I told you that you must know that one size fits all emergency plan is difficult to apply to all disasters. Pregnant women should be encouraged to develop evacuation plan and forewarning to allow to evacuation. When evacuation is not possible, the health care of women in the antepartum, interpartum, and postpartum period need to be safety management. The staff should increase patient awareness of signs of complication. Furthermore, there are several factors that may contribute difficult access to obstetric health care facility during disaster. You must enhance your emergency member performance about this as the staff to support pregnant women, OBGYN staff, anesthesian when you have a operation room in a field hospital. Volunteer. I show my student picture because they have a knowledge of midwifery knowledge or maternal and child knowledge. Maybe you should invite them to join about your to be the member of emergency disaster. And also government staff, police, soldier, and shelter staff. You think about the holistic, consider about the risk birth, premature infant. They have two lives that you should think more. Some situations have a problem about when they give birth in the during disaster. They might have a complication of hemorrhage and retain placenta. You should think how to save their life. And you must conduct effective system, facility, resource, communication, and laboratory response. About nurse, how nurse should do at antenatal care, LR, and all setting related pregnant women. You are the key people of policy, strategy, and service during disaster among women. You are the key person. You are the leader. You must think about how to prepare to support them. And then you establish local facilities where prenatal care and obstetric service can be provided for those women unable to evacuate. Medical record. You should think more about the medical record or electronic medical record. Some situations you could not record via electronic because we don't have electricity. And you must working to ensure that accurate information and increase patient awareness of pregnancy complications. This is the pink book that you should tell them to keep when they go to everywhere around the world. Yeah, your pregnant, your customer. And you must consider the need to extend the availability of emergency medical assistance. And then maybe in the future, you must create the family communication plan how mother and their family will contact on another and WhatsApp. You will take a different type of situation and preparedness emergency kits. I show this is some primary healthcare sector. I think Indonesia and Thailand, we are the same. We are developing country and we are suffer more and less chronic from natural disaster due to insufficient ineffective communication combined with insufficient budget allocate for disaster prevention and management. Disaster management and primary health care is the first step to handle every disaster among pregnant women also. That you need to enhance them to indicate the intervention and the step to support vulnerable people to this place. You should provide an opportunity mainstream response service with primary health care, and you should provide needs emergency medical assistance, minimum disaster management, and you must preparing household facility and communication of community of is disaster. And you must conduct effective referral system, the bus, helicopter, or everything that you must try to put in your protocol. I would like to show some disaster. This is pandemic disaster in our country also. COVID pandemic disaster. COVID-19. Yes. According to this answer of this time, I would like to show the serious pandemic that around the world we facing. As this situation, UNFPD share the synthesis, the limited evidence on the list of this group, as well as the preventive measure and supportive therapy recommended. Sexual reproductive health is a significant topic that you should think more. World Health Organization try to give the suggestion for preparedness for this disaster. We might fight a long time with this situation. I use the distancing, mask wearing, hand washing. I think your country also apply for protect your pregnant women also. And we have application for this group, and we have the protocol COVID-19 among pregnant women. This I show some example in my country also. This picture from some province in Thailand that we have many Myanmar workers in this area, and they are infected COVID-19 with premature contagion with IUGR. They prepare our staff try to prepare well their protect how to prevent infection to themselves and newborns. They practice resuscitate, try to practice if the newborn have a problem, because newborn has IUGR, and we must try to protect themselves also. Obstetric care at the designated facility is idea, and it is the low public health official in an area designed to increase obstetric. That you must try to prepare. I think you work well and you have a high rate of vaccination. I appreciate. This picture shows the normal daily preparedness and involve this setting because this hospital is my practical field. The traditional attendants have also high skill, and the staff must protect themselves from COVID-19 because if they're infected or maybe they are under PUI, we must have pressing with midwifery shortage because they have a self-quarantine. You should prepare staff and LR facility completely. To conduct new LR room for PUI patients. This is we try to conduct new LR room for patients, and we practice that how to give birth. Lesson learned from COVID-19 pandemic disaster. I summarize. Every disaster have a problem. We must stand together in solidarity, fight stigma and discrimination, and ensure that people get the information and services they need. And I have learned that we must develop. This is the new pandemic. this answer that we must develop and offering relevant continuing medical education course and developing a tailor model or web-based training program for healthcare providers on different ethics and arrange training course and impacting P and in-service training on the standard competency. We have official association that we try to follow them. It is when you have this answer, you must think more about how to support them, such as antenatal care units. You must think more about the facility, and you must put on the equipment or instrument of your disasters as vitamin and maybe some instrument that you must serve it to them, that you should prepare yourself well. And maybe you should think the information that you should give to them when they are self-service. When they're facing this answer, such as learn about safety and evacuation procedure, take medicine training and first aid or CPR, identify needs upfront for family in case they separate or cannot reach home, know the location about the place that they are ready. Okay, this is the facility in LR that I follow this organization the guideline. This is for COVID-19 also, and we try to have a guideline for some disaster situation. You must think about the equipment that important in the LR room, such as a blood sheet or some medicine, some medication such as magnesium sulfate, Vicryl, or maybe oxytocin. You must prepare for support them well. About the facility in postpartum, you must think more about how to protect them from the sub-temperature, or maybe you should enhance them to do breastfeeding, because I already told you that we have limited everything when we have this disaster situation, such as they evacuate from volcanic eruption, they move to field hospital. They should nurse their baby with their bed milk. This is good. Okay. In conclusion, these answers are unplanned, but we are anticipate. Emergency preparedness is essential to maintain healthy pregnancy and ensure good outcome for pregnant women and their infants who ensure this disaster. Involved in this disaster situation cause and exacerbate tremendous anxiety and depression that you should timely evaluate them. If evacuation is not possible, identify local healthcare facility that can provide obstetric care. Discuss the available of emergency birth kit or something like that. I think the medical care provider need to provide access and support public health authority in plan for service during this disaster. It is my when you are a mother, it is my last slide. When you are a mother, you are never really alone in your thoughts. A mother always has to think twice, one for herself and one for her child. And anywhere, this is my idea. When you are a nurse who take care of pregnant women during this disaster, you always have to think holistic, how to save them perfectly. Okay, thank you very much. This is my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pratuma. Makunaka.
Thank you very much. Okay, I can stop my. Okay,
okay. Dr. Pratuma, allow me to give a highlight that for your presentation. Jadi partisipan yang berbahagia, pada pembicaraan yang kedua ini kita bicara tentang di mana Dr. Pratuma sudah menerangkan di sini ada dua macam bencana atau disaster, yaitu alami seperti erupsi gunung, gempa bumi, banjir dan sebagainya, dan ada juga yang bencana disebabkan oleh tangan manusia seperti kebakaran, kemudian bencana industri, perang, dan yang lain-lainnya. Di sini yang perlu kita highlight adalah dari bencana itu.
Kita ke sana. 0274 4295 796. 4295 796. Olah Bu ayo ra duwe ono.
Kakak nyimpen kok.
Omah kene.
Iki lho.
Bayangan iki gua apa ngono abang. Kebetulan rumah tamu. Astagfirullah. Aku selalu juga di depan lain. Ono lho. Alhamdulillah kasane lho sak itu. Kono bento. Deret-deret anakmu piye carane? Si Ance. Assalamualaikum. Halo, assalamualaikum. Waalaikumsalam. Ora deret-deret deh. Nah, gitu yang mancing. Bukan anak itu.
Banyak hal yang bisa kita persiapkan, dan bencana ini juga hampir sama antara Indonesia dengan Thailand. Dan di sini yang kita perlukan adalah teknologi yang memadai untuk memperingatkan atau memberikan informasi kepada masyarakat supaya terhindar dari dampak yang lebih besar. Nah, sebagai seorang perawat di sini apa yang kita perlu persiapkan adalah pelayanan kesehatan lokal, apa yang kita bisa laksanakan sebelum terjadinya bencana atau di saat terjadinya bencana. Kemudian juga kita memerlukan juga di sini integrasi sistem sudah disampaikan juga oleh Prof. Paul tadi bahwa integrasi sistem ini sangat dibutuhkan karena perawat tidak bisa melaksanakan atau melakukan implementasi perawatannya dengan sendiri. Terus kemudian yang mesti kita lihat di sini juga adalah fasilitas pengetahuan dan keterampilan terkait dengan pandemi. Di sini banyak juga hal yang bisa kita pelajari seperti meningkatnya atau berkembangnya tentang panduan, kemudian training, ilmu, pengetahuan terhadap pandemi dan pelaksanaannya. Kemudian juga meningkatkan penyusunan terhadap materi-materi pelaksanaan pandemi. Mungkin itu yang bisa saya highlight untuk pembicaraan yang kedua. Silakan saya ingatkan kembali kepada partisipan. Jika ada pertanyaan yang ingin disampaikan pada pembicara pertama dan kedua, silakan ditulis di kolom chat. Baik itu yang berbahasa Indonesia ataupun nanti yang berbahasa Inggris, kita akan sampaikan atau kita tujukan kepada kedua pembicara kita sebelumnya dengan bahasa yang disesuaikan. Terima kasih. So we would like to invite our third speaker today. So here our third speaker is Bapak Yudi Arista Chandra. Oke, selamat pagi Bapak.
Oke, selamat pagi.
Pagi, izinkan Bapak saya membacakan CV Bapak sebelumnya. Nama beliau adalah Yudi Arista Chandra dan di sini beliau lengkap lampir